Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Dear friends, we are in the midst of a crisis. The whole world is gripped by the coronavirus, the COVID-19 crisis. Here in New York, it has become the epicenter. This vast city, so busy at usual times, is now silent and quiet. And in the hospitals, medical centers, doctors, nurses, other medical workers are fighting desperately to save the lives of thousands of people. Tens of thousands have been infected. The authorities are doing their best to control it. At this time, what spiritual practices are going to help us? This is what I would like to speak about today. Can spiritual practices help us at this time? Of course they can. In fact, these are the times that spirituality is meant for. Let us not forget that the Bhagavad Gita was taught to Arjuna not in a Vedanta society or on a mountain top in an ashram. It was in the midst of a great crisis, in the battlefield, where a terrible civil war was imminent. In the midst of that, Krishna taught the highest philosophy, the highest devotion to Arjuna. So certainly spirituality is helpful for us, is of great, great help and relevance at this time. I hear the voices of so many people, how there is suffering. Of course, in the hospitals there is the direct combat with death. Those who are infected are fighting for their lives, and the doctors and nurses are trying to help them day and night. But also across society, there is fear and depression and anxiety. So many people, they're saying how they have lost their jobs. We are all now forced to socially distance ourselves from each other and stay at home. People are saying that how it's difficult to cope with huge changes in their daily routine. Unwanted changes, unwelcome changes. In the midst of this, there's depression outside, depression inside. Just a little further away in downtown, there's Wall Street, where they are afraid of economic depression. And inside, within all of us, there comes these waves of mental depression. How do we overcome this? How can spiritual practice help us at this time? I'm going to speak of 4 practices, 4 great ways in Vedanta which are useful for us, which are of great use to us, great protection to us at this time of crisis. What can these ways do for us? How exactly does spirituality help us at this time? Buddha speaks of the nature of suffering as a person who is hit by an arrow. Imagine the pain and the shock of being hit by an arrow. And immediately after that, this person, unfortunate person, is hit by a second arrow. Now, this first arrow is what the world throws at us. Coronavirus, pain, suffering, disease, disruption in life. And the second arrow is our reaction, our internal reaction to what is happening. There's depression, there is anxiety, there is uncertainty about the future. All of these internal reactions This is the second arrow. Now the Buddha says what spiritual practice can do is take care of this second arrow and alleviate and remove the suffering caused by this second arrow, our internal reaction. For the first arrow, of course, we have to take all practical measures, follow all the instructions that are given to us by doctors and by the public health authorities. That will mitigate the effect of the first arrow, which is the virus itself and its effects on society and family and personal life. But the real suffering is the reaction that we have inside. There are these 4 practices to help us overcome that internal suffering. The first one, of course, is the path of knowledge, the path of jnana, of Advaita Vedanta, an inquiry into the self. Notice how to the same awareness, there was normal life going along, you're going to job, taking care of the family, and engaged in the normal expectations, worries, and happiness and joys and sorrows of day-to-day life. And then suddenly everything changed. I'm reminded of William Butler Yeats' beautiful poem on Easter 1916. We are again coming to Easter this year in April, but Easter in 1916, in the middle of the First World War, Yeats wrote this poem, and where he says, "Changed, utterly changed, all is changed, a terrible beauty is born." So this tremendous change suddenly came, and it came suddenly. Within a few days, everything was turned topsy-turvy. Now I invite you to notice that this happened in our awareness, the same awareness which was aware of normal life is the same awareness which is aware of this tremendously changed life. Is the awareness itself affected? This awareness, which is not the body, not the body and the mind appear in this awareness which we are. This awareness which we are, is it affected by the virus? The virus affects the body, affects the functioning of the prana. Is it affected by depression or anxiety? Depression and anxiety come and go in the mind. Are we aware of a mind which was free of depression? Yes. Are we aware of the mind in which there is depression and anxiety? Yes. So that which comes and goes is not inextricably tied to I, the awareness, this consciousness. If it is not tied to consciousness, if consciousness is not bound to this anxiety, then consciousness is actually free of this anxiety. It is free of this depression. When there was no depression, the consciousness was illumining that frame of mind, that state of mind. When there is depression or anxiety, notice that the same consciousness is illumining the depressed, that cloudy mind. And again, when the depression and anxiety will go away, as it will in a few days, few weeks' time, the consciousness will continue to illumine that. I am that consciousness, I am not that mind. This is very obvious. And this consciousness, according to Advaita Vedanta, is one in all beings. In the minds, shining in the minds of all beings, men and women, old and young, healthy and sick, the same consciousness shines unaffected. The sun shines unaffected by the clouds of various hues passing over it. The Ashtavakra says, Mai ananta maham bodho vishwapota itastata Bhramati swantavatena namamastya sahishnuta. I am an infinite ocean of consciousness. In this ocean, the world, our lives, they're like a little boat. Notice, I am the ocean, and my life and this whole world is like a little boat in me. It's not that I am like a little spark in a vast and uncaring universe. Rather, the whole universe appears in consciousness. Now think of this consciousness as an unlimited ocean and this world as a little boat floating in this ocean. And it floats according to its own logic, swanta-vatena, propelled by causality, by karma. Sometimes it goes up, things are very, very good, going well. Sometimes it goes down a little, things are not going so well, coronavirus. Namamastya sahishnuta. What is the attitude of the ocean towards the boat which is sailing in such erratic ways? The ocean is patient. It is not impatient. Namamastya asahishnuta. Ocean is not bothered by the movement of the boat. Even deeper. Mai ananta maham bodho vishwavichi swabhavata udetu vastamayatu name vriddhi na vakshati. I am the infinite ocean of consciousness, and in me this world arises as a wave. Let the wave arise, let it subside. I neither gain nor lose anything. Notice that the wave is actually a part, an appearance in the ocean, whereas the boat is something different from the ocean. So we have gone to a deeper level where we realize this world of appearance, which is appearing in our consciousness, is actually not apart from consciousness. Think of it at 3 levels. The world appears to you, the awareness, or to consciousness. 1. Deeper level, the world appears in you, the consciousness. And 3rd, the world is nothing but you, the consciousness. In I, the consciousness, the world appears, and this appearance is nothing apart from me, the ocean-like consciousness. When the wave arises, is the ocean increased thereby? No. The water belongs to the ocean. Nothing is added to it. When the wave form subsides back into the ocean, is the ocean decreased or diminished thereby? No, the same water remains. Similarly, let birth come, let death come, let health or sickness come, let riches come or poverty come. I, the consciousness to which they appear, in which they appear, and which they are not different from, I am neither increased by their presence nor decreased or diminished by their absence. Name vriddhi na vakshati. I am not increased nor diminished. Even deeper. Mai ananta maham bodho vishvam nama vikalpana ati shanto nirakara etadevaham Ashtavakra sings, in me the infinite ocean of awareness, the world is not even a wave, it's imagination. It's an appearance, it's imagination. Vishwam nama vikalpana. You see, the wave is actually, one can even think that something is happening. When the wave comes and the wave floats along and it subsides into the ocean, you think that something is going on. But when you say it's an appearance, imagine an ocean which is absolutely calm. There is no wave at all. A vast, limitless ocean of awareness. That is what we are. Formless. Consciousness in itself is formless, though forms appear and disappear in it. And ati shanta, forever at peace, beyond the possibility of disturbance. This is how I persist from eternity to eternity. Actually, it's poetic language to talk about eternity. Time and space are both appearances in consciousness. So this is the tremendous vision of Advaita. And the beauty is, Advaita says it is true right now. It's always true. Somebody asked that, at this time, are you seriously expecting us to think about and practice Advaita Vedanta? Yes. Advaita Vedanta is not some intellectual game, some clever philosophy that we indulge in once a week and when everything else is fine. But then when things are disturbed and we are under stress and anxiety, we have no time for it. No, not at all. This is the time for Advaita. When do you go to a fire? Do you go to a fire thinking, let me first become warm, then I'll go near a fire? No, it's only when you're cold that you really need the fire. We need it when we are suffering, we are under stress and under fear and anxiety. Then this comes to our rescue. The old story about, I'm going to take a bath in the ocean, I'm going to swim in the ocean when the waves have subsided. That will never happen. This is the time for Advaita. I remember about 15 years ago in Himalayas, in Gangotri, about 10,000 feet up, we used to go, I and other monks, we used to go to this old sadhu, Punjabi sadhu, who would teach Ashtavakra to the monks every day from about 3:30 to 4, I think, or 4 to 4:30. He would teach this Ashtavakra to us. And one day, he looked at us holding the book in his hand, he looked down, we were sitting at his feet, and then he said, sort of reflectively, "Ye sab Mahatma ji, ye to astra hai. Oh Swamis, these verses of the Ashtavakra, these are weapons. हाथ में तलवार और दुश्मन से 2 थप्पड़ खा के रोते रोते आगे क्या मजा है महात्मा जी. You are armed with a sword and the enemy comes and gives you a couple of slaps and you come back weeping. What's the fun in that? You are armed with this knowledge, with this great insight into our own self. The enemies of fear and anxiety and terror and depression, they beat us up and we come back weeping and we are helpless. No, you're not helpless. You are heavily armed against these enemies. So these verses, these ideas are our armor. God is the greatest armor, the greatest shield against suffering inflicted by the world. Gaudapada. So today we are talking about High Advaita, Ashtavakra and Gaudapada. Gaudapada, who wrote the famous commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad, the famous Mandukya Karika. Now there's an interesting little detail which we often fail to notice. The Mandukya Upanishad, as we all know, is about looking at the 3 states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and becoming aware that these 3 appear and disappear to one consciousness. This one consciousness is independent of and underlying these 3 states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So this one consciousness is called the 4th. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and that one consciousness is figuratively called the 4th. So this is the basic idea behind the Mandukya Upanishad. So most of us, we think of the Mandukya Upanishad as the classic text which investigates into the 3 states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. But that's not true actually. Gaudapada, he says in the Mandukya Karika, there are only 2 states. We normally have only 2 states, dreaming and sleeping. Deep sleep is sleep, and both waking and dreaming, Gaudapada calls it dreaming. Waking is also a dream is also a dream. Then what is real waking? Real waking is becoming aware that I am that 4th, that consciousness, that underlying shining reality. Why does he call waking and dreaming both dream? He says even the waking state, if you examine it, is very dreamlike. Something is appearing to consciousness and we are involved in that. And that's common to both waking and dreaming. In the waking state, we see things, we hear, smell, taste, touch things, and it comes from an external world in contact with sense organs, and so the consciousness is involved in this. This is waking. In dreaming, the mind generates by itself all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of imaginations, and the consciousness is involved in that. It seems to be engaged with that. That is dreaming. In both cases, consciousness is engaged with appearances. Both are called dream because that which is false appears to consciousness. That's the very definition of a dream. And in deep sleep, the appearances cease, there's a blankness, and that is deep sleep. So, for Gaudapada, the waking state is as much of a dream as the dream state. Now, usually it's a little difficult to catch because we are so solidly convinced that the waking state is out there and real, and the dreams are in our mind and unreal. But it is at times like this that Advaita Vedanta invites us to take a look at what is happening. Many people are telling me that life has become surreal. Suddenly, life around their own lives and the lives of people around them and around the world, which is being brought to us by the media, whole world has suddenly become strange and different and dreamlike. So notice, as long as this state lasts, notice how strange life has become, how dreamlike and unexpected and weird life is. And after a few days, because it's the very nature of our human constitution, we adapt. In a few days, this state of lockdown will begin to seem more and more normal. This will become the new normal for some time. And then, when you look back upon the life which disappeared a couple of weeks ago, our normal life of so many years and decades, when you look back upon that, that will seem dreamlike. Big crowds, busy streets, packed subway, under the ground in Manhattan, schools and colleges and lecture halls full of hundreds of thousands of people, the Broadway shows. Was that all real? The restaurants all packed with people in the evening, the sidewalks crowded. Was that all real? It seems so dreamlike. None of that seems to be there now. So the life which we left behind 2 weeks ago, that very soon will seem dreamlike. This seems dreamlike now. When we get adapted to it within a few days or weeks, this will seem real, and the life which we left behind will seem dreamlike. Again, by the grace of God, within a few weeks or months, the old life will slowly come back to us. Things will become normal. So-called normal within quotes. And then this period of the times of the coronavirus, this will seem dreamlike again. That did this really happen? Did the world become so strange and difficult? What I am driving at here is the point that Gaudapada makes. Our so-called waking life is very dreamlike. It's not very different from our experiences of dreams. When we are experiencing it, it seems very real. When it fades away into memory, and then we compare dreams and memories of waking, memories of dreams and memories of waking, they seem very similar to us. But the consciousness to which they are appearing, that consciousness is the reality. What was real? Was that old life which has changed? Was that real? Is this false? Or is this real? And that was a dream? Gaudapada would say both are appearances. Our common sense approach is, that's also real, this is also real, and then once the things become normalized, we will again quickly forget and go on with our quotidian life, our daily life, and that's how samsara goes on. But Advaita says, pause, stop for a minute, and notice how dreamlike these appearances are. These appearances are dreamlike, but that to which these appearances appear, you, the consciousness, you are the reality. So this is the first great practice. The noticing, the discernment, the inquiry, which leads us to the realization, I am this infinite ocean of consciousness, not affected by even the greatest changes in external life, in a personal life, and even in internal mental life. All of these storms come and go. I am the infinite blue sky of consciousness. Infinite blue sky, I'm talking poetically, of course. Consciousness is colorless. So this is the first great practice of tremendously useful, most practical. People would say it's theoretical, it is most practical. It gives peace and strength and joy immediately. All the fog of confusion, of anxiety is blown away immediately. What pain, what anxiety, what confusion. Now, the second practice, just the opposite direction. Swami Turiyanandaji once says, I am Brahman. Vivekananda could say that. It does not come so easily to us. So I say, not I, but thou, my Lord, thou, my Lord. Naham tuhu tuhu. This is the way of devotion. There is a great power. We cannot deny it. We cannot deny it. In this world, suddenly see how this tiny little invisible thing has changed our lives across nations and continents in spite of all our power and riches and technology. Dramatically changed our lives almost overnight. So this invisible little thing. Similarly, spirituality, devotion to God is another invisible thing, even more powerful, which can rescue us, which can protect us. At this point, somebody may ask the question, but just a minute, aren't these two separate, different paths? I am Brahman, and I am this little sentient being who worships Brahman, who worships God. Which one should I take? Aren't they contradictory? They're actually not contradictory, but even if they were, so what? One can actually hold on to both. One can hold on to one or the either or both of them. And Swami Vivekananda, he said to an American woman here, he said, Madam, always have two sides. Always keep these two sides, knowledge and devotion. After all, why should it be contradictory? These are two ways of getting at the same reality. One is the way of knowledge, which says, I am Brahman, which realizes, which notices that I am that unaffected infinite consciousness. The other is the path of devotion. I am this being, this body, mind and awareness all bundled up together, and I recognize this vast presence, this existence, consciousness, which is now God to me, the creator, preserver and destroyer of this universe. There is this tremendous power. There is this power according to whose will everything in this world goes on. Not even, as Sri Ramakrishna would say, not even a leaf can shake or tremble without the knowledge of God. And this power is benevolent, though we may not understand it, though it may seem strange to us, difficult to us. Ultimately, this power is benevolent. It is protective. One great way of overcoming anxiety and depression and fear is to appeal to this power, to pray and to love and to surrender to God. One of the most beautiful sutras in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, which I like very much, it goes like this. Sarvada sarva bhavena nischintitehi bhagavan eva bhajaniya. Sarvada, at all times. Sarva bhavena, in all ways. Nischintitehi, free from anxiety and depression. What do? Bhagavan eva bhajaniya. Bhajaniya, fit to be worshipped, should be worshipped. Who? Bhagavan, the Lord, eva, alone. So at all times, in all ways, free from anxiety and depression, worship the Lord alone, God alone. Anxiety, chinta, the word in Sanskrit, in Hindi and many Indian languages, it stands for worry and anxiety. There is an old verse which goes, Chinta chita samakhyata, chinta chitato api adhika, chita nirjivam dahyati, jivitam tu, jivitam, chinta jivitam hi. What does it mean? The anxiety is compared to the funeral pyre, that which burns up dead bodies. So anxiety is like that fire which burns up dead bodies. But anxiety is worse than that funeral fire. Why? But that funeral fire burns up only dead bodies. But anxiety burns up the living too. So being free from anxiety, sarvada, at all times. See, to think about God, we are always been told that think about God all the time. It's very difficult. It's almost, most of the time we are not thinking about God. So one way is to begin first by limiting our thought. They say, Desha Kala Vastu. At Kala, at this time, for the next 15 minutes or for the next half an hour, I shall only think about God. Maybe I will repeat the mantra. Maybe I will pray to God. Maybe I will look at the picture or the icon of the Lord. And so I'm binding my thinking in this time. For starting here, ending here. At least this much. If I cannot think about God all the time, let me think about God. Let me make an intention, self-aware, that at this time I shall think about God and nothing else. Other thoughts will keep coming in. All right, but I'm aware, I've made the intention that at this time I will think only about God, so I push out all those other thoughts. At this place, Desha. So when I am in this corner of my room where I worship the Lord, here I will not think about anything else other than God. When I am in the temple or church or mosque, I will think only about the Lord and nothing else. I make up my mind. Not even about coronavirus. So I will think only about the Lord. You see, the problem is, the way the media and the internet, which are tremendously useful at this time, but they are bombarding us with news, and it's a depressing kind of news. And what Narada is telling us to do just the opposite. Bombard yourself with thoughts of God, with love and devotion and surrender to the Lord. At least, if not always, if not everywhere, then sometime in some place. Vastu. So, at this time and this place, I will think about only my Lord in this form, in the form of Krishna or Rama or Ramakrishna, in this picture, on this image, or in this in the space of my heart. So tie the mind by time and space and object, and use these. Neither time nor space nor object are God, but these can be used. The mind cannot think without time, space, and object. So it must use time, space, and object to think about God. Sarva bhavena, in all ways. Whichever way appeals to you, as Shiva, as Kali, as Durga, as Rama or Krishna or Ramakrishna or Jesus, or in whichever way, as Allah or Father in heaven, whichever way appeals to you, whichever is our own tradition, we can think about God in those ways. Sarva bhavena. But also, apart from this theological approach, in God, the Lord is immanent in all beings. So in the father and the mother, in the husband, wife and child, in your colleagues, in people around you, the Lord is present in all of them. In fact, it's the Lord alone who appears, not imagination. That is the truth. When we think about people as flesh and blood, when we think about people as persons, this is actually imagination. This is our error. It is the divinity alone which is appearing as a person and in that body of flesh and blood. One thing I keep hearing, especially in a place like the United States, and especially here in Manhattan, which is very busy and crowded and small apartments, multiple times I heard over the last few days that people are telling us, Swami, you say that this is the time to get used to being alone and withdraw inside and find peace. What peace? Rather, there's so many people in the apartment. We are never used to staying with so many people. Everybody had his or her routine, husband, wife, children. So each had their own place of work or study. And they would meet only for a short while every day. But now everybody is crowded. The schools and colleges are closed. And in little apartments, people are crowded. I was hearing about so people who have to take care of others, 5 or 6 people in a tiny apartment, and on top of that there is the dog also. Now, instead of treating this as an imposition, this is an opportunity to serve the Lord. Sarva bhavena, in all these ways, by you're cooking for them, you're doing the laundry for them, or just the education of the children. Somebody was saying that now I have to homeschool my 10-year-old and I've forgotten how to do fractions, so it's not working too well. So these are the different opportunities to serve the Lord in all the members. If you cannot do it on a wider scale like our health workers are doing, so doctors and nurses are now soldiers in this war against the virus. But if not all of us are going to be soldiers in the war, but those who are in any capacity, wherever you are, even a few words of encouragement, even online, whether you are chatting with somebody, speaking with somebody, a few words of encouragement, positivity, a smile. Just as the virus is infectious, a positive attitude is also infectious. This is what you can do. It's a great service. Sarva bhavena, worship the Lord immanent in all beings. This is the second great practice that we can do. The third one is something that we learn from Patanjali, the great master of meditation. He tells us this control of the mind, we consider it very difficult. Meditation, we consider it very difficult because the mind is difficult to control. We want to think about God, but all sorts of other thoughts crowd in. And how can we continuously think about God for 1 hour, more than that, all the time? It seems very difficult. Patanjali tells us, no, actually there's a secret to controlling the mind. The secret is this. The nature of the mind is such that it can only think of one thing at a time. At every instant, there is one vritti, one movement of the mind, one thought or feeling or perception, idea, memory. But only one instant, one only is possible. Now, for deep meditation, for prayer, for being centered in God, all that we need to do is take care of that one instant and one thought. And then the next instant and the thought corresponding to that. So, the great insight is focus, one thing at a time. It's a cliche almost, a slogan, one thing at a time, but it's a deep secret. It's a very, very powerful key to our psyche. You don't have to worry about the world, you don't have to worry about what's going on in the family or everywhere else at all the time. At this moment, only one thing calls your attention. And just take care of that. One thing at a time, one vritti at a time, whatever is arising, point that towards God. I like the serenity prayer very much. Some of you know the serenity prayer that, O Lord, give me the courage to change the things that I can change, the patience to bear the things that I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Very beautiful prayer. This actually removes a lot of tension and anxiety and depression. Courage to change the things that I can change, the patience to bear the things that I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, at every moment, one thought is appearing. Let us also think, which thought is more important, is more pleasant, more ennobling, more sublime than the thought of God? For those of you we are initiated into a mantra. Think about it, mantra, one thought, the one mantra or repetition of the mantra. Compared to that, which other thought is more important? Something may be urgent, you may have to do it. But otherwise, this general worry, this general anxiety, feeling of helplessness and anxiety about the future, what good does it do? Patiently bear the things that we cannot change. And then use the power of thought to think about God, to repeat the mantra. When we think about it, no thought in the world is actually more important than the thought of God. And the mind tricks us into being continuously engaged with the world, and fruitlessly so, increasing our unhappiness, and we spread that unhappiness around. Rather, moment to moment, that one vritti, when it arises, direct it to God. Next moment, another thought arises, make sure it is about God. It could be the mantra, it could be a prayer, it could be a bhajan, it could be reading about the Lord, or the saints, those who are enlightened beings, whatever. Anything that keeps the mind engaged with God. Sarva bhavena also means in all ways. It need not always be meditation. It need not always be prayer. It need not always be, say, singing about the Lord. A combination of these things as it appeals to you. But keep the mind, the vritti as it arises from moment to moment, engaged with the Lord. There will be no space for anxiety. The beauty of the mind is it takes on the color of Sri Ramakrishna's beautiful story about what a person who was dyeing cloth in different colors. So you bring some cloth to him, he will put it in he say, which color do you want? Red. You put it in a bucket, the cloth will come out red. So which color do you want? Blue. And he puts it in another bucket and the cloth comes out blue. So whichever color you dip the cloth of the mind in, the mind takes that color. After some time, the mind begins to repeat the name of the Lord automatically and finds joy in it. One thing at a time. That's the great lesson we learned from Patanjali Yoga. And the fourth great practice that we can do is, one way of overcoming fear and anxiety is to be concerned about the welfare of others. Swami Ranganathanandaji, I really liked this saying of his. He was the 13th president of our order. He would say, what is spirituality? When I close my eyes, I find peace within. When I open my eyes, my attitude is, what can I do for you? If we can honestly hold on to that attitude, inwards, God and peace, or aham brahmasmi, whichever you like. And when we are engaged with the world, my only motive is, can I be of service? To your family, to the community, to your colleagues at work, can I be of service? Definitely one will get peace. Definitely one will get joy. Anxiety and fear and depression will never come near us. So, to overcome the effects of the second arrow. First arrow, of course, we must take care of by all practical measures. The real suffering comes from the second arrow, and to overcome the effects of the second arrow, these are the four great practices. 1, aham brahmasmi. 2, my Lord, not I but thou. Remember, sarvada sarvabhavena nischintitehi bhagavaneva bhajaniya. 3, one thing at a time, focus. 4, others, the welfare of others over mine. These four great practices, if we keep our mind to them, they will definitely ennoble us, make our minds full of light and joy. Most of all, we take refuge at the feet of the Lord. We understand that everything in this universe moves by the will of a great power, by the will of Ishvara. So I pray to Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Ma Sharada, Swami Vivekananda. May they bless us, O Divine Mother, we are thy children. Please bless us in this time of crisis. Please protect us ever and ever. Our communities, families, our nations, protect us, bless us day in and day out. May thy gracious face be ever turned towards us. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.